Undercover CEO found a single mom washing her kids' clothes in the sink. What happened next? What are you doing? I'm sorry. Please don't report me. I swear I wasn't using hotel supplies. I didn't have quarters for the laundromat, and I needed to wash my son's clothes. I'll clean everything. Just please don't tell the manager. I can't lose this job. Her voice trembled, and so did her hands, red and raw from scrubbing tiny clothes in the sink of room 103. The faucet continued to drip as water pooled around the drain. A pair of miniature jeans lay on a threadbare towel, half-washed, still clinging to the scent of cheap detergent. She didn't look up. Lucas stood at the doorway, motionless. From her point of view, he was just another maintenance worker, gray shirt, worn jeans, tool bag slung over his shoulder. But Lucas Remington was not a maintenance worker. He was the CEO of the Crestwood hotel chain, 36 years old, self-made, fiercely private. For the last 2 weeks, he'd been working undercover at this very branch. No cameras, no board members, just a new name, a fake badge, and his own 2 hands. He needed to see for himself what kind of company he had built, who was struggling, who was invisible. He never imagined it would hit this close to home. "I'm not here to report you," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. Her face was flushed, her blonde ponytail messy, a streak of soap on her cheek. She didn't speak. "I was called to fix the leak," he added, gesturing slightly toward the faucet. She nodded slowly, her eyes not leaving his. "I used my own soap," she said after a moment, voice smaller. "It's almost empty, I know, but I wasn't stealing. My son only has a few sets of clothes." Lucas stepped further into the room, setting his tool bag down gently by the sink. He crouched and opened the cabinet. A simple loose pipe. It wouldn't take 5 minutes to fix. But he didn't start. His gaze drifted back to the towel, the slow dripping, the anxious way she hovered protectively over the sink like it might be taken from her. And then came the wave, sharp and sudden. Years ago he'd done the same. On his knees in a gas station bathroom, scrubbing his only shirt before a job interview. Using the cheapest bar soap money could buy, avoiding the mirror because he couldn't face what he looked like. This scene, this woman, wasn't just familiar. It was him. Lucas froze. That part of his life, the part no one in the boardroom ever saw, rose like a tide in his chest. He stood up slowly, not saying a word, and then he walked out, leaving behind the soft scent of detergent and the ache of a past he thought he had buried. Lucas Remington's life was shaped by what he lacked. He never knew his parents. They died in a car crash when he was a toddler. He grew up in an orphanage, surrounded by walls that smelled of bleach and silence. He learned early how to disappear into the background, to observe rather than speak, to hope without expecting. At 18, the orphanage let him go. What should have been freedom became survival. He spent nearly a year sleeping under bridges, in shelters, even in stairwells of apartment buildings. He lived on crusty bread and the rare kindness of strangers. He kept going with one silent promise to himself, never be that helpless again. That year, Lucas met Elise. She was brilliant, warm, and full of belief. With her and a childhood friend, he started a small hospitality business. They had nothing but a dream, and each other. Lucas poured every waking hour into that company. He believed in it. He believed in them. Then one morning he woke to an empty bed, drained bank accounts, and a vanished company. Elise and his friend had disappeared, taking with them everything, including his trust. It cut deeper than poverty ever had. Lucas built the Crestwood hotel chain from those ashes. With structure, control, and a heart locked behind iron. He became a millionaire before 35. His name carried power. His employees feared him, but no one really knew him. Not anymore. Because every time he looked in the mirror, he still saw the boy washing his only shirt in a sink, praying no one would walk in. Just across the hall, Ava Collins carried her own quiet battles. She was 28. Blonde hair usually tied back, small frame, tired eyes, but a spine made of something steel. Once she had been a top nursing student. Until life happened. She got pregnant. Her fiancé else left. School became impossible. Her dreams went on hold indefinitely. She gave birth alone. For a while, she lived with her mother. But when her mother got sick, Ava moved into the tiny employee room offered by the hotel she worked at. She became part of the background, cleaning rooms, making beds, doing what had to be done. She washed her son's clothes in the staff bathroom sink at night. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no other choice. The laundromat was a luxury she couldn't afford. And still she smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone untouched by hardship. It was the smile of someone who had learned to carry it, who refused to let it show. At work, Ava was diligent, attentive, always just a little too quiet. She was often late, walking her son to the community daycare, making sure he had a snack, waiting for the bus. Her manager noticed. Her co-workers whispered. But Ava kept going, because she had no choice. Lucas noticed her first in room 103. Bent over a sink, scrubbing tiny socks with dish soap. The scene hit him like a ghost. He'd been that person. And in her posture, her tired focus, he saw something unshakable. He didn't report her. Instead, he left detergent and laundry vouchers by her door. No note, no name. He kept his role as undercover maintenance staff, showing up for routine repairs, running checklists. But each hallway crossing with Ava left him, unsettled. Her eyes held the same guarded strength he once saw in his own. But where he had turned cold, she had stayed warm. Lucas, the CEO known for ice, started to feel something melt. He watched her push a cart of linens and sneakers worn thin. Watched her wipe down guest counters while her fingers cracked from dryness. But she greeted everyone the same way, with sincerity, not script. He started to linger near her routes, under the guise of hallway inspections or broken light bulbs. Their exchanges were short, but meaningful. Did the dryer work okay? That hallway light still flickering. Not because he had to ask, but because he wanted her to know someone saw her. Lucas had built a business by ignoring the human side. Ava reminded him what it meant to see someone before you judged them. He had once praised resilience on stage, quoted hardship in boardrooms, never realizing how many Avas had stood just outside the spotlight, doing the hard work, unheard. Now, she was not a statistic. Not a story. She was real. And in the quiet pull of her strength, Lucas felt something unexpected. Hope. Hope that maybe even the most guarded heart can be moved by the quiet, everyday courage of someone who refuses to give up. The next morning, Ava stepped out of her staff room and froze. There, placed carefully on the worn linoleum floor, was a small paper bag. Inside, she discovered a travel-sized packet of laundry detergent and a prepaid wash card for the hotel's staff laundry machine. There was no note, no signature, just an act of kindness, silent and certain. She glanced down the empty hallway, no one in sight, only the distant hum of a vacuum. The gift pressed against her chest, and her breath caught, not in fear, but something deeper. Someone noticed her struggle and quietly chose to help. Later in the break room, she asked around. Maria from housekeeping shook her head. Jeff at the front desk gave a puzzled look. No one claimed the gesture. So she tucked the card into her pocket and, that evening, washed her son's clothes using the gift. The scent of clean fabric filled her small room, and something inside her felt lighter for the first time in a long time. Lucas never spoke of it. He remained the undercover maintenance guy, quiet, dependable, efficient. But after that morning, every time he saw Ava, whether pushing a linen cart or changing sheets, something flickered beneath his stern composure. They began to exchange glances more often, holding them just a moment longer. Their few spoken words carried more weight. Did the dryer work okay? Hallway light still flickering. Simple questions, but Ava felt the intention. Someone noticed her daily burden. And she noted in return how he never treated her like just another room attendant. There was respect in his attention, not pity. A few days later, after a double shift, Ava made her way to a small park near the hotel. Her son, Liam, spent afternoons at the volunteer-run daycare there while she finished her work. She found him under an oak tree, wearing a paper crown and clutching a toy dinosaur. She sat down beside him, spinning stories about T-Rex astronauts, smiling as his laughter soared. Unbeknownst to her, Lucas sat on a nearby bench, needing space after a tense disagreement about a malfunctioning pipe. He had not planned to be at the park, but when he saw Ava there, carefree with her son, something in him stilled. He watched her from across the lawn, her golden hair glowing in the afternoon light. He saw her strength, softened in these moments of joy. When their eyes met, he offered a gentle wave before turning to walk away. He didn't want to intrude. He only wanted her to be seen. That scene played on in his mind long into the night. Her laughter, her son's delighted squeals, the peace on her face, moments he couldn't reconcile with the woman scrubbing bathroom sinks. The next day in the storage room, amidst faded party decor, he found a sheet of dinosaur stickers. He paused, then slipped a bright green stegosaurus into his pocket. The morning after, Ava discovered an unaddressed envelope in her locker. Inside was that sticker and a simple message on hotel memo paper. For the little dino lover. Her fingers trembled. A laugh bubbled up from her chest unexpectedly. It was her first genuine laugh in days. She didn't know who left it, but she felt seen. That night, Ava decided to leave through the service alley to avoid lobby crowds. Rain drizzled lightly, forming puddles that reflected flickering streetlights. Lucas, no longer on shift, stood under the small metal awning, phone in hand. Their eyes found each other across the waterlogged pavement. She took a breath. "I think I owe someone a thank you." "I don't know what you mean," he replied, but his smile reached his eyes. Their laughter joined, warm, sincere, shared. They fell into easy conversation, favorite cheap noodle brands, $2 coffee that tasted just fine, and which vending machine snack carried the best flavor punch. She shared that Liam was obsessed with dinosaurs and bedtime was a nightly expedition to uncover new facts about T-Rex. "I used to dream of being a nurse," she revealed, voice softening. But life made other plans. Lucas looked at her, the real her. Not the staff record, not the shift schedule, but the resolute woman with dreams paused, not extinguished. "You'd make a good one," he said gently. The rain slowed. The alley shimmered in golden lamplight. A quiet shift happened there. Nothing dramatic. No declarations. Just a glimmer of something new. In Lucas's mind settled a surprise thought. She's the first person to make me laugh. Without armor. Without defense. He didn't know what tomorrow held. But for the first time in years he hoped, and he wanted to find out. The hallway outside room 214 was unusually quiet, save for the sharp, clipped voice of the floor manager, Mr. Dorsey. Ava stood near the maid's cart, head slightly bowed as Mr. Dorsey pointed angrily toward a clipboard in his hand. I had to hear it from a guest. A guest. The bathtub was still dirty. How hard is it to check your work? Ava's face flushed, her voice calm but tight. "I did clean it, sir. There's a leak in the pipe. It's dripping rust. I wiped it twice. I'm not interested in excuses. If you can't handle a tub, maybe this isn't the right place for you." Lucas, walking out of the utility closet across the hall, heard everything. He didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the moment froze him in place. He watched the tension in Ava's shoulders, the way she gripped her cleaning rag like it was anchoring her in place. He'd seen this kind of moment before. He had lived it. Accusation. Assumption. No room for dignity. He stepped forward, calm, measured, but his voice carried a sharpness that silenced the hallway. "It's your plumbing that leaks," Lucas said evenly, not her work. Mr. Dorsey blinked, clearly startled. "Excuse me." Lucas gestured toward the maintenance report tucked into his back pocket. "Room 214 has had a rusted pipe under the bathtub since last Thursday. The stain's coming from behind the tile. We've scheduled repair." The silence that followed was suffocating. "Mr. Dorsey fumbled for a retort, but nothing came out. Lucas didn't stay to savor the moment. He turned to Ava briefly, met her wide, stunned eyes, then walked away without another word. Later that afternoon, Lucas received a formal warning from upper management. He had stepped out of line, challenged a superior, risked disrupting internal structure. He accepted the reprimand in silence. But that night he stood alone in the tool room, staring at the note in his hand. A neat little warning typed and folded. Cold. Empty. He crushed it in his fist and threw it in the trash. Meanwhile, Ava stood by the vending machine, still processing what had happened. No one had ever stepped in for her before. Not like that. Not in front of someone like Mr. Dorsey. She waited by the stairwell, uncertain. Part of her wanted to thank him. Part of her was afraid to. But when she saw Lucas walking through the back corridor, she didn't hesitate. "Hey," she called softly. He stopped. She approached slowly. "You didn't have to do that." He shrugged. "You didn't deserve it." A pause. "Why?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you care so much for someone like me?" Lucas looked at her, the question hitting deeper than she knew. For a moment he didn't answer. Instead, he said simply, "Because someone should." She nodded slowly. uncertain of what else to say. He walked off again, just like before, but something hung between them now. Something unspoken but electric. That night, after Ava tucked Liam into bed, she opened her door and nearly tripped over a small package resting on the welcome mat. It was wrapped in brown paper and tied with a single piece of string. Inside, she found a pair of wool gloves, soft, thick, handmade, and a small tube of hand cream. No note, but the gesture said enough. Her breath caught. Her hands, rough and cracked from cleaning chemicals, hadn't felt something that soft in months. She sat on the edge of her bed, gloves in her lap, eyes stinging with tears she didn't expect. Because it was not about the gloves. It was about being seen. And that was new. She didn't know who Lucas really was, but something told her this man, who asked about hallway lights, who defended her in front of a superior, who left silent gifts with no expectation of praise, was someone different. Someone who carried his own weight. Someone who, like her, had learned to notice the pain others overlooked. Ava looked at the gloves one more time, then folded them carefully and placed them next to her son's toy box. Somehow, this meant more than flowers. It meant she mattered. And somewhere, just down the hall, Lucas sat by the window of the empty staff lounge, watching the lights of the city blink in the dark. He didn't know what he was doing, but for the first time in years, he was doing it anyway. The staff lounge was unusually lively that morning. Someone had wheeled in a small television. Paper cups of coffee passed from hand to hand. Excitement buzzed through the air like static. The company had announced a live stream, something about a surprise CEO visit to various Remington hotel branches across the state. Think he's actually coming here? One of the receptionists laughed. Bet he's got bodyguards in suits and shiny shoes. Ava chuckled softly with the others, standing at the back of the room. Her cleaning cart was parked just outside the door, but she allowed herself these 5 minutes. Curiosity tugged at her. Her mind wandered, though. She had not seen Lucas all morning. Not since the night she found those gloves and the hand cream waiting at her door. That small act, it had stayed with her. More than any gift she had received in years. He was kind, in a quiet way. Attentive but never pushy. He had defended her, seen her. It meant something. The room quieted as the screen lit up. The Remington Hotel's logo appeared first, sleek and modern, followed by a brief jingle, then a live video feed. The camera panned across the marble lobby of a grand hotel in another city. Lights flashed. Reporters stood in rows, murmuring into microphones. And then Lucas walked out, wearing a tailored navy suit, polished shoes, a calm, practiced smile. Ava's world tilted. She blinked, sure her eyes were playing tricks. But there was no mistake. The man standing at the podium, waving to the press, was the same man who had unclogged her sink, handed her tools, stood beside her under the rain, the same man who left her child a dinosaur sticker with a handwritten note. Her breath caught. The voices around her blurred into a distant hum. On screen, Lucas began speaking. His voice, now formal, filled the room. We're launching a new initiative to reconnect with the heart of our hotels. I've spent the last 3 months working undercover across various branches, getting to know our people, seeing what they face daily. It's been humbling. A ripple ran through the room. Wait, Undercover. Wasn't he just? Ava barely heard them. Her legs felt weak. The Lucas on screen continued, his tone measured and confident. I've met single mothers, immigrants, students working 2 jobs, veterans rebuilding their lives. Their resilience is the foundation of our brand. He looked into the camera then, his eyes intense. I'll be honest. I went undercover to improve operations, but what I found changed me. Applause erupted on screen, but Ava couldn't move. Her hands were cold. Around her, staff murmured and laughed in disbelief. No way he was here. I told you he looked too clean to be maintenance. But she was frozen. The betrayal landed not like a knife, but like a slow, suffocating wave. Lucas. Lucas who asked about her day. Lucas who stood up for her. Lucas who looked at her like she wasn't invisible. He had known, all along. He had power, money, a name. And he said nothing. Her mind spun. Did he mean the things he said? Did he help her because he cared? Or because she was a good anecdote for a corporate speech? A project? A symbol? Her throat ached. He said he cared. He looked at me like I mattered. But maybe I was just his project. The screen flashed back to the lobby feed. Lucas smiled for the cameras. Handshakes, smiles, more applause. Ava stepped back slowly. She turned and left the room, unnoticed by most. She did not cry. Not yet. But the hurt settled deep in her chest, sharp, familiar, echoing every time someone she trusted had walked away or let her down. She made her way to the locker room, changed out of her uniform in silence, and hung her name tag on the hook. Then she walked out the service door into the gray afternoon, not because she wanted to quit, but because her heart needed space to break, away from the lights, away from the eyes, away from him. Lucas had not slept properly in days. 3 mornings had passed since Ava left. She had not returned to her shift, had not answered his messages. Her locker at the hotel remained untouched. Her cart sat unused in the storage room. Her name tag was gone, and the silence gnawed at him more than any corporate boardroom ever had. For the first time in years, Lucas Remington did not know what to do with his hands, or his words, or his regret. But he knew where she would be. Late that Friday afternoon, under a pale golden sky, Lucas walked into the community elementary school 4 blocks from the hotel. The same school Ava once mentioned, between casual conversation and soft smiles, where her son loved show and tell Fridays and the teacher handed out dinosaur stickers. There was a parent gathering that day, just a small classroom meet and greet in the multipurpose room. Folding chairs, juice boxes, the quiet chaos of children weaving between adults. Lucas stood in the back for a moment, out of place in his dark jacket and worn boots. He had come as himself, not the CEO, not the fixer, but just a man who needed to say something true. He asked a teacher's aide if he could say a few words. She blinked at him in confusion, then nodded slowly. There was something in his tone, urgent, but not loud. When the teacher finished her announcements, she gestured toward him. "We have a special guest who'd like to speak." Lucas stepped forward. Every pair of eyes turned toward him, parents, teachers, kids still clinging to snacks. But he did not look at them. He looked beyond the room, toward the hallway, toward where he hoped she was. And then he spoke. "I know I don't belong here," he began, "and I'm not here to talk about business. I'm here because I made a mistake." He exhaled, steadying himself. "I met someone recently. A woman who works harder than anyone I've ever known, who's raising a child with nothing but love, grit, and quiet sacrifice." The room quieted. "She reminded me what real strength looks like. Not loud, not proud, just steady. Every single day." He paused, glancing briefly toward the doorway, where Ava stood, out of sight but within earshot. "And I want to say this clearly," his voice lowered, thick with emotion. "I didn't help her because I'm a CEO. I helped her because I remember what it feels like to wash your only shirt in a sink and hope nobody sees." The room fell into stillness. Lucas didn't elaborate. He didn't name her. He didn't need to. Outside, just beyond the doorway, Ava pressed her back against the wall. Her hand covered her mouth as her chest heaved with quiet sobs. Not because of what he said, but because he had not come to find her in secret. He had stood in front of strangers, in a space that belonged to her world, not his, and told the truth out loud. He had not made it about himself. He had made sure the world saw her, not as a story, not as a symbol, but as someone worthy of being seen. Inside, Lucas finished simply. "She may never forgive me. That's not why I'm here. I just wanted her to know what she does matters. Who she is matters. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that kindness never needs a stage. But sometimes it deserves one." He stepped back, thanked the teacher, and walked out of the room, past the juice boxes, past the curious glances, past the door, where Ava stood, wiping her tears. He didn't stop. He didn't reach for her. He simply passed by, quiet and resolute, giving her the space to choose. Behind him, the sounds of the classroom faded. Ahead of him, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows. But somewhere in the hallway, the air felt lighter, because sometimes love does not beg. It simply stands, speaks truth, and walks away. The lobby felt warmer that morning, not because of the weather, but because something in the air had shifted. Whispers traveled quickly. Heads turned. But this time there was no malice. No side glances. Just quiet smiles, nods, and a few eyes that shimmered with something close to pride. Ava had come back. She stepped into the hotel with quiet steps, her blonde hair tucked neatly behind her ears, her uniform crisp, but her heart still unsure. Would it feel the same? Would they still look at her like she didn't belong? But one by one they came. The bellhop was first, offering a respectful nod. Then the front desk staff, who simply said, "Good to have you back." Even the housekeeping supervisor, once cold and distant, offered a small smile. There was no pity in their eyes, only respect. Ava made her way past the elevators, past the gleaming marble floors, into the service corridor she knew by heart. Her hands were shaking just slightly. She had not seen Lucas since that afternoon at the school. She did not know what she would say, but her heart did. She found him in the maintenance room, bent over an old wooden chair, scrubbing at a stain on the cushion. The room was quiet except for the soft squeak of the cloth against the fabric. He did not hear her at first, but when he looked up, his hand froze mid-motion. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Ava stepped forward. "You don't have to fix everything," she said softly. Lucas straightened, his eyes locked on hers. "Just stay," she whispered. The cloth in his hand fell to the floor. He took one step, then another. And then he was standing in front of her, closer than he had ever dared to be before. "I thought I lost you," he said, voice hoarse. "You didn't," she replied, tears brimming. "You just had to let me find my way back." He reached for her hand. She let him, and in the golden wash of late afternoon sun streaming through the small maintenance room window, they held each other. Not as a CEO and a hotel maid, not as a fixer and someone broken, but as two people who had carried pain in silence until they found someone strong enough to share the weight. Outside the open doorway, a few staff had gathered, drawn by the quiet. No one spoke. Then someone muttered, "Finally," and the room erupted in applause. It was not loud, not theatrical, but it was real, because everyone in that hallway knew what it meant for two people to carry so much and still choose to reach for one another. They weren't clapping for a love story. They were clapping for courage, for healing, for hope. And as Lucas and Ava stood in the warmth of that light, arms wrapped around each other, the applause wrapped around them like a promise. No more hiding, no more silence. Just two hearts, finally safe to be seen. The changes came slowly, but they came. Lucas Remington, now no longer just the man behind the name on the building, announced a company-wide policy, support programs for single parents, mental health counseling for staff, and full scholarships for employees who wanted to return to school. He stood before a crowd of wide-eyed employees, not in a tailored suit, but in a simple navy sweater, and said, "We build hotels to serve people. That includes the people who make them run." No one clapped at first. They were too stunned. Then Ava stepped forward, now part of the Guest Experience Advisory Board. She had been invited to speak during a staff training. She took the mic, voice steady but full of feeling. "I used to think this place was just a job," she said. "But then someone reminded me that people matter more than positions. That kindness is a kind of leadership too." Her story became a training tool across all Remington properties. Not because it was polished, but because it was real. Months later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, the hotel's grand lobby was transformed. Balloons floated near the ceiling, a table held a dinosaur-themed cake, and employees from every department trickled in with tiny wrapped gifts in hand. Ava stood near the elevator, laughing through tears as her son, now 5, tore open a gift containing a T-Rex hoodie. Lucas stood nearby, holding a bouquet of balloons, watching with quiet joy. He had planned it all in secret, the decorations, the cake, even the Dino stickers placed at every guest's seat. He wanted the boy to feel seen. He wanted Ava to feel celebrated. When the little boy saw Lucas, he ran over and threw his arms around his leg. "Are you my new daddy?" he asked, voice innocent and full of wonder. Lucas froze, then knelt down, eye level with the boy, a soft smile on his face. He looked up at Ava. She was crying, but she nodded. Lucas pulled the boy into his arms. A hotel lobby had never felt so much like home. That evening, when the guests had left and the cake was mostly crumbs, Lucas and Ava walked together, hand in hand, down the same hallway where everything began. They stopped in front of room 103. It had been repainted since. The leaky faucet fixed. The cracked mirror replaced with one that reflected light rather than tiredness. The room seemed brighter now, like it had been waiting for a second chance. Just like them. Lucas reached for the door, then paused. He turned to Ava. "This is where I first saw you," he said quietly. "Not just noticed, but really saw you." Ava smiled, fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve. "And this is where you reminded me I was worth seeing," she replied. He opened the door. Sunlight streamed in. They stepped inside, the past behind them, but never forgotten. Because some stories do not need castles or fairy tales. They just need a sink, a small act of kindness, and two hearts brave enough to stay. Sometimes the most powerful love stories do not begin with grand gestures. They begin with a sink, with someone seeing you at your lowest and not turning away. With a quiet act of kindness that changes everything. If this story stirred something in your heart, if it reminded you that kindness matters, that second chances are real, and that even the smallest gestures can become life-changing moments, then you belong here with us. Subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more real,